don't need the glasses. We don't need the...
Hey, what's going on?
Wow, that was a...
Well, happy Thursday, everybody. Happy Thursday. We are too short tonight. Andrew's out of town. Sean is supposed to come over. We'll see what happens in a little bit. But if you're watching, we are using OBS tonight. It's been a while since we've done that. We've usually used StreamYards or Melon is a new app we've been using. But tonight I'm going old school. I want to go full throttle
throwback
on the video quality. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully the audio is good. And one new thing, by the way, when we hit start on the OBS, it just goes live. I didn't realize that. So
we found that out.
if you watch the replay, you're going to see a couple seconds of us going, what? Oh,
Drew's
what?
like, we're live. And I'm like, we are? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, I mean, we're really live? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, and I swore, but whatever. That's who I am.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
Thursday night, happy Thursday night.
Happy Thursday.
Scotch for Dummies. 2 of us in the house tonight. Andrew is out of town on a little getaway with his wife. Good for them. And Sean's got some company in town. So we are going to pull this off. We've got a pretty good show lined up that I think we're going to carry, though, and it's going to be fun. We got a lot to talk about. We got to talk about what happened this past weekend, our trip down there, what's coming up in November, a little bit about that. Get into this regional discussion thing, and we'll talk more about that in a few seconds. But who do we got on? Let's at least say hi to everybody before we dive into the details.
Audio's good and clear. Video isn't that great. Really? Gosh darn it. I was thinking this would be the way to go tonight.
Man, it looks great on our screen. Why is it we always just can't seem to figure this out?
I don't know. I'm about ready to give up and just not do this anymore. You want to just quit lives?
You just want to do like a podcast or something?
Let's just do podcasts. I mean, because this is too much work.
That's not fun.
Anyway. Well, hopefully it's okay. It's decent. But let's see who's online, and we'll come back. And if we have to, we'll restart the stream and use StreamYards.
You could always do that too.
It's easy enough to do.
We see everybody that was in the pre-show, except I didn't see Mark JG in the pre-show. I did see him this past weekend.
That was pretty awesome.
We'll talk about that. We will talk about that. Stephen Rogers, Jeffrey Rollins. Hey, cheers. Good to see you. Stephen A.
Francis. Good evening, dummies. We've missed you since last week. Yes, thank you.
Trooper Henry. You know, we haven't seen him on our pre or post shows in a long time. Trooper, what's up, buddy? I see you in the chats. You don't want to stop and say hello? Paul M. Evening, everyone.
You get 5 extra minutes by mistake because that was me supposed to be testing when I left the Zoom a minute ago.
Uh-oh.
And then it went whoop live. So
there's my new Scottish brother from another mother. Time for a dram. Oh my gosh, man. I'm still pregnant, by the way.
That dude is become a super famous guy with us right now. We love this guy.
That's my dude right there. I love him.
Decent. Hey, I had him first. Decent 25. Anyway.
We'll have to share. Scotch on the Bayou. Hi, Leanne.
It was so good to see her this weekend.
So I see Lizzie and Alejandro. We saw him this past weekend as well.
We did. That was awesome.
Chad Anderson.
Alan Newland, trying to watch football, and this is the same time. Yeah, who's playing tonight? I didn't know. I forgot Thursday Night Football.
Whatever.
I don't know.
You can put that on in the background.
Can't read
It's
the
more
bottles and
commercials
tables so
than
far, but
anything.
we're good. Okay. Video's a little dark. Maybe let me turn some lights up. Keep
All
talking.
right. So let's see. I'm trying to see what it looks like. I can't tell, but anyway. So I'm going to get into, while you're adjusting the lights, talk about what the content is tonight. So first we're going to get into what we did this past weekend. Talk about the Bastards Ball, who all we saw, what we did, how awesome it was. Actually do quite a bit of shout outs because there are a lot of people that we want to say hi to and get them out. But then we're going to get into this region discussion. And it actually spawned out of our trip to this weekend because we had a lot of conversations with people down there. So in this discussion of regions, you'll see we've got pairs. Obviously there's 5 pairs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but not the 5 whiskey regions that you know. There are 5 regions, 6 unofficially. We'll talk about that a little bit better, but there's a little bit of a blind going on here. One of each is poured in the glass, and we're going to sort of challenge each other, and it's more of a discussion on profiles, on region, what a region profile really is. And we can debate whether that's important or not. Some people will argue, but historically and traditionally, regions are known for certain flavor characteristics, smells, tastes, and whatnot. And we're going to get into that a little bit on these. I'm sure we're going to end up actually getting...
It's definitely skewed more than it has been in the past, of the last few years, right? People will say, well, regions don't matter as much anymore. I'm like, they still do, but I can see where their things are getting more mashed as far as, Islays having, or people having more peated up north versus Islays not having peat and things like that, for a quick example. But the reason this came up was we had some conversations this past weekend. And where were we this past weekend?
So Andrew, Drew, and I, we hopped a plane down to Austin for the Bastards Ball. We were graciously invited by the tribe, and let me just tell you, they put on a hell of a show. It was an event. They have an awesome location to headquarter their operations out of. It really was cool. We got down there on Friday. We ran into a ton of other whiskey tubers, and we'll get into who those were. We hung out at the La Quinta, and there was a plethora.
We've heard about this for 3 years now, and it did not disappoint.
Plethora of whiskeys in that lobby, and it was a blast. Actually, thankful that I got up alive on Sunday to make it to the ball, and had a really good time there. We hung out with other tubers and saw the mass of people that had came to attend the event. We were actually treated to some special things Saturday night at the Wizard Academy where this is hosted, and it was really cool. We'll get into exactly what we did. So we hopped a plane early Friday morning.
Early. We started off right with a flask.
So yeah, let's talk about that. We get to the airport, we're parking, and Drew's like, "Hey, I'm gonna sneak this flask down." I'm like, "How are you gonna sneak a flask onto an airplane?"
I forgot we weren't checking the baggage.
Right.
So just carry on. I'm like, "Oh
you're
yeah,
you're not keeping that." And he's like, "Well, what are we gonna do with it?" I'm like, "Well, what's in the flask?" And he's like, I don't remember. And so we start passing around, and it's Kilkerran 8.
I'm pretty sure it was Kilkerran. I'm like, well, that's a pretty good morning breakfast Scotch for you.
But we make it down there, awesome, no problems, no issues, and we get picked up at the airport by Scotch on the Bayou.
Hell yeah.
I mean, how awesome is that? Leanne picks us up. We did a little sightseeing in Austin. We hit a liquor store or 3, got some lunch.
We found, we had TJ's Burgers. There was some liquor store there. Then she took us over to Specs.
T. Perry's.
Something like that,
I
yeah.
don't know,
It was
weird.
whatever. It was okay. It was food. We needed food.
Yes.
We went over to Specs. That was my first experience with Specs. I would say, some of you may or may not know it, but it's basically like Total Wine, but the sort of
Better
version of it.
selection.
And
I would say.
it didn't disappoint either. It had a pretty good selection of Scotch in there. I didn't even check anything else, just Scotch.
Yeah, we just literally focused on that because as a Scotch for Dummies, we wanted to show up at the hotel with a few bottles because everybody's bringing bottles. And so we picked up a couple of decent bottles. We picked up a Gordon MacPhail Old Pulteney 21, which I was interested in to see if it stood up to OP21. And then a Hazelburn that you picked up as well.
Hazelburn 13 Oloroso was delish. I think Gregor, he polished it off in the night, I think. But, that was a really good bottle. And the OP21 was delicious, too.
Yeah.
Was that an IDP? Or IDP?
Yeah, it was Gordon MacPhail.
Yeah.
That's why I bought it, because I wanted to see if it measured up against the regular OP. But anyway, so that's Friday. No, that's Saturday. Excuse me.
Yeah, Saturday.
We started Saturday. So Saturday night, we were actually invited out to the Wizard Academy.
Well, before that, we went to the whiskey.
Matt. Still.
Yeah, Matt from Whiskey Crusaders. He had this whole thing he put together for the YouTubers So it was us, it was Whiskey Crusaders, it was Test Dummies, it was
Bourbon
Bourbon
Junkies.
Junkies, it's Bourbon Night. I mean, a bunch of us, right? We all get
Yes.
together and we meet at this
Rock Gut.
Stills Austin Distillery, which, by the way, Chris, I think he's one of the
Co-founder?
owners, co-founder.
Yeah.
Great guy,
Hell of a host.
really good stories. The distillery itself, we had some really good distillers there. The musician, it was the main.
The musician is sort of like their core range bottling right now.
And they have Cast Strength and a few others, but that was
Right.
delicious. That's like one of my favorite
That one
drams
was- yes.
surprises over the weekend.
Yeah.
So we had a great time there for a couple hours at least.
Got a tour of their distillery. They fed us. It really was treated very, very well. Honestly, I really want to get Chris from Still Austin on the show to talk about it because I think they're doing some really good stuff, and he's a great person to have on the show.
Yeah,
He
we'll have
really
him on.
represents what they're doing and why they're doing it, which is important to them. So that was cool.
Zach's got our 21 in Hazelburn.
Aha.
Hopefully, he brings it up in a few weeks.
Good to see that Kreger didn't kill it.
That's right.
So then we leave there. We come back to the hotel, I think, and freshen up. We end up over at the Whiskey Academy Saturday night.
That's right. We
And
another tour just for YouTubers to tour the facilities and the vault.
visit the vault. And let me tell you, that is one badass room.
We actually have a patron only clip. If you're a patron, I posted it yesterday of Mark and Eric Waite was
Yeah,
there.
Eric Waite, Whiskey Studies.
And we were already kind of 3 sheets in the wind by then. But we're the vault itself, by the way, is so epic because it's like
Whiskey floor to ceiling.
3,000 plus bottles of whatever, and it's basically whatever you want to drink. Just grab it and pour it. And obviously the whiskey sommeliers have to pour it for us, but it was so cool just to walk around. I'm like, oh my gosh, they have.
Can I try this?
Like Gregor and I pulled at least two samples of Decent 20.
It was really fun. We had a great time in there to see where they give their whiskey classes and stuff. It really is a cool building, the tower. Really cool grounds. We had a lot of fun there.
Zach, thank you, buddy.
Cheers, brother.
Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate
Good
that.
to see you.
So we had a great time at the academy. The vaults was awesome. Actually, before then, we were hanging out just kind of at the bar right there, where their distillery is, and
We
just
tried some of their drams too.
yeah,
It was great.
half of us were just hanging out there on the deck, just drinking beers and smoking stogies and whatnot. It was a good time. But
Met Daniel, talked to him for a while. He gave us a tour of the room. What do
Right.
you call that? The
what was their classroom?
Classroom, I guess we will.
Yeah, which was a really, really cool place. I mean, honestly, everything
Tower.
about it was really interesting. It was really cool. I mean, like I said before, it was a hell of a
it's a
place to
huge
be able to
area
have
too.
a headquarter to be
Huge.
able to pull off what they do, and I can see how they're able to do it because they've got the right digs. We end up at the La Quinta that night, and it is just epic. There's, I don't know, 50 people in that lobby.
It's a room at the size of like a hotel lobby, like a small hotel lobby, packed with probably 400 bottles just laid out everywhere. And everyone's just walking around. And by the way, the barbecue that Matt put together
Oh
from
my gosh,
his
from
friend
Crusaders?
was, oh my gosh, epic as well. So
Yes.
had a
Chow.
great time. That was Saturday night. I think we went into the wee hours. I know you went into the wee hours.
Yeah, I was
for
gonna
sure.
say, let's call it Sunday morning.
So that was the end of Saturday, and then Sunday we get up, and then we actually go to the official Bastards Ball.
Well, before we make it there, we had to go get some breakfast burritos, or breakfast tacos, because that's really the thing in Austin.
It was different.
Man, that chorizo
saved
and
your
eggs
life.
really saved my life, so I was thankful for that. But yes, then we make it over to the actual ball, the Bastards Ball. And who did we go with? We went with Gregor and Bill.
Yeah, Bill. Yep.
Bill drove, and it was great because we, as whiskey tubers, we were allowed to park on site, and we got up in there and got set up. We had tables. All the whiskey tubers had tables. We set up next to the test dummies. We moonlit on their show a little bit. We kind of interrupted and just poked our face in there and had some fun with those guys. But Scott and Cousin Shane were there. We were having a good time. There was bacon being passed out, right?
The Crusaders.
Not Matt, but Will.
Will.
Yeah, Will was passing out bacon, of course, and it was good.
Bourbon Junkies were there, and then Bourbon Night was there, and then the Rock Gut. So all of us
Yep.
were in there. I think Eric came in there a little bit.
Yep.
He was in there,
Eric
but
Wade.
It was a nice little area, but what was cool about it is just the whole outside piece of all the other distilleries. And I know Iron Root was there.
Still Austin.
Yeah.
Balcones was there. There were half a dozen or so distilleries, Texas distilleries that had tents
And
set up.
Colorado was there too, I think, representing.
Yeah, you're right. But before we get to those distilleries, Bill and Gregor had sort of stole Aquavita's show, and there was Mark J.G. had done a cutout of Aquavita of Roy and was carrying it around on a stick. So we all kind of jumped in and said hi to Roy, and we were constantly texting and calling him and sending him pictures all day, to let him know that he was there in spirit. So I'm sure he wanted to be there, but it was fun. So we get outside and we start talking to some of these distilleries. I got to tell you, I definitely was impressed with Still Austin. I didn't even talk to the Balcones people because the line at Balcones was
long.
It was just crazy. But really had a good time and conversation with the Iron Root folks.
Oh, had a great time. Marsha and Jonathan
The
were
mother
great.
of Texas whiskey.
Man, we talked to her for a good hour, I think.
A woman knows her whiskey.
And we tried a bunch of their stuff. I'm going to tell you right now, we are fans.
Yes.
We're big fans. So
Good whiskey.
we're probably going to do a show on Iron Root Distillery stuff here soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
But great people.
Great
They're doing
people
good stuff
making
down
good
there.
whiskey. So that was really fun. It was interesting. I was really, my eyes were opened, and I could definitely see a bottle from Still Austin and a bottle or three from Iron Root on my bar because I have a better appreciation for what they're doing. But what also happened during the ball is, we're talking to a lot of people, and a lot of them obviously are bourbon fans. Although I will put this caveat, at the end of the ball as they were doing the closing ceremonies, there was a comedian that did a survey of the crowd, and he said, a raise of hands, how many of you are bourbon heavy, lean on bourbon? And there were some hands that went up, but when he said, how about Scotch, everybody said Scotch.
It was a pretty big difference.
That blew my mind. I expected to
20% or
see
so, yeah.
way more bourbon fans, but there wasn't. But the question kept coming up to us, knowing that we're prominently Scotch. Well, what's the big deal with Scotch? Why do you claim that Scotch is better? Or what's this with regions and taste profiles? I don't understand why you think Scotch is better than bourbon. And so it's not a conversation of better or worse, but our response is more of the breadth of flavor, the variety, if you will.
We had lots of conversations all weekend. You can imagine just with people sitting with us and just meeting people, even other YouTubers, and lots of bourbon discussions. And we get the whole bourbon history and different places and to make bourbon these days and or whiskey in general. But the question kept coming up to us like, what makes Scotch so unique? Why did you guys like it so much? And I think we kept coming back around to that. Obviously the history, but just the regions are kind of what really give and take, kind of what makes Scotch Scotch.
The breadth of variety. You can go from this end to this end. Not to say that bourbon doesn't have it, or American single malt. I definitely think that when you get into the American side of things, whether it's bourbon, single malt, whatever, I think there's a lot of creativity going on. I think and that makes it, that's what gives it its variety, not so much regions. And you could even argue that regions are not really a thing anymore because of creativity. You've got Spacesides that are putting their whiskeys, maturing them in ex-peated casks to give a peat profile, which really doesn't fit the profile of a Speyside.
Right.
Pete. So I get the argument there, but traditionally, regions do matter. There is a characteristic of each region. And even if that isn't a thing, if people want to argue that's not a thing, who's to say that it won't come back around? Because what will happen. Scotch is very traditional. And if they want to get creative and all these regions want to start doing things that other regions do to make their profile change, it'll come back around in 10 years and they'll be like, we're getting back to our heritage and our roots. And what is that? What is the region heritage, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what we're going to do here. That's what we're going to talk about.
So let's do a quick recap of the regions and go into the details of each region. And then what we're going to do is you can see here we've got kind of some bottles here that represent each region. We'll go through those. And we also poured blind a dram of one of each region's bottles. And we're going to go through, it's not going to be a winner or anything like that. We're just going to go through it and say, okay, which one do you think this is and why? And just kind of talk through it and hopefully pull out some of the regional notes that we come to expect.
Okay, that's right. Good. So let's start off with saying this. The SWA, the Scotch Whisky Association, recognizes 5 official regions. Okay, 5 regions. You've got Highlands.
Let me pull up this map here.
Yeah, pull them up and let's talk about it. So you've got Speyside, that yellow one in the heart. You've got Highlands. And side note, it is argued that Speyside is a subset of Highland. But anyway, so you've got Speyside, Highlands, you have Lowlands, you have Campbelltown, and you have Isla. Now on this map, you'll see Islands, which is not technically a recognized region by the SWA, although it's kind of like the unofficial, stepchild, really. I mean, because there is a very unique difference in profile there. Obviously, Speyside right now has the largest concentration of distilleries. I can't even name. I want to say there's 45 or more.
There's supposed to be more. I don't know if it's still true, but they said at one point there's more distilleries in the small area of Speyside than there is all of Highland. But it's probably true because Highland's massive.
The irony is Campbelltown used to be the world capital of whiskey.
Years
and at
ago.
one time it had over 30 distilleries down there, and they have what now? Well, we'll say 3, although it's hard to say distinguish them differently because 3 whiskeys are made at one distillery.
Right.
But anyway, let's talk about the actual regions and what
Okay.
they are. So Speyside, right? What do we have here representing Speyside?
Well, you have these two in front of you right here, right? This is a Macallan, which is, I think Macallan is probably the quintessential Speyside that everyone knows. When you get into Scotch, Macallan is the biggest name. Probably, fair to say, the biggest name in Scotch.
Yeah, I mean, if not, it's fighting for it. It's
definitely one of the nicest distilleries. I mean,
definitely
huge.
the new one, right?
Right.
But it could be argued that Macallan doesn't really represent the Speyside region because it's very heavily sherried, right?
True.
So Speysides are traditionally fruity, which you got sherry, but honey, rich, elegant. They're also known for being lighter, grassier. So it might not be representative of all of Speyside, is what I'll say.
But it's fair to say that most people, and I think that consensus will say, when you think about a Speyside Scotch, you think of fruity sherry Scotch, sweeter sherry Scotches for the most part, right? Most sherry bombs come from Speyside.
Both of these are sherried, obviously.
Right.
I mean, Tamdu, they only mature in ex-sherry casks, and obviously Macallan is known for that. I mean, I
Right.
think they've got a few out there that aren't sherried, but for the most part, they are.
You can almost assume that most Speysides are going to be mostly sherry. Not all. But
Not all.
Kind of a generic kind of term, right?
But it does have its own unique flavor, if you will.
So do you want to go to the blind now? Or you want to go through them all first and come back to them?
No, let's do it.
All right. So this is a pull. I basically mixed it up for you earlier. I don't even remember.
I mixed these two. This one's for you.
That's for me. Okay. So
I know which one's
I don't
in
even
the
remember what I
glass.
mixed.
I know.
So we've got a Macallan. This is a 6, I think.
Macallan Edition 6.
And that's a Tamdu
12. So Macallan Edition 6 is 48.6% ABV, and then the Tamdu 12 is 43%. So they're not far off. We know they're both sherry matured. But they should be similar. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to be surprised if you guess which one this is. But what do you get on the nose?
Well, the first sniff, it's super concentrated caramel and fruit. That's like the first 2 things I get.
Surprise, surprise. Which you should get on both of them.
Concentrated sugar.
I want to take
some vanilla.
Take a sniff of it. So, I poured it, so I know what's in it. But I will tell you. Well, I'll wait until Drew gives us his.
Wow, that's really good. It's
really good.
very caramel, toffee oriented, almost butterscotch, semi-long finish. Not too spicy. Maybe a hint of white pepper at the very end, which is probably the alcohol. Low ABV, maybe 43. Very creamy. I'm still tasting the finish here a little bit, but it's a delicious sherry bomb. Not sherry. I wouldn't say sherry bomb, but it's a delicious Speyside.
Okay.
I don't know which one it is, to be honest. I haven't had the
You got a
Tamdu
50%
12
chance here,
in
brother.
forever, but it smells. It smells Macallan to me. I love Tamdu, but I don't know if Tamdu is that creamy. It might be. It could be. It could be. It might be.
Tell me if it is.
It's not.
Which one is it?
It's the Macallan. That's exactly what I thought it was.
So
Tamdu, I know Tamdu is good, but I don't remember it being that potent on the vanilla caramel fruitiness.
the reason even though I know I poured it, the reason I knew this was a Macallan because I get the sulfur note on it.
See, I don't get sulfur. He's really particular in Macallan sulfur. I don't get that on this.
I got beat up on a comment on a video today that someone said, sulfur, you're out of your mind. And I'm like, the fact of the matter is I just happen to be sensitive to it. For some reason, it just jumps out of the glass on me, and it punches me in the nose. And I'm not saying that in an off-putting way. It's just very prevalent.
Okay, so the interesting thing about this is that they're both Speysides. But the Tamdu is so much more tamer, so much more, I wouldn't say malty, but it does not nearly as fruity, not nearly as caramel toffee that this is. This is like almost like over-the-top sherry toffee fruitiness, whereas this is more tamed down or hammed down.
Boy, I get that white pepper you were talking about.
Yeah.
Wow. But after the white pepper, it was a white chocolate note. Kind of that sweeter,
Yeah,
maybe
okay.
of a vanilla.
Concentrated.
Yeah. But I want to try the Tamdu.
Yeah, so the question Steve mentioned, and we'll talk about this for a quick second. I can't even watch the comments. I can't keep up.
Steve said something about it not being argued that Speyside is a subset of Highland. I didn't get to read the whole comment.
Basically, they're saying that this is a Highland, not a Speyside. But technically, if you really want to get nitty gritty, isn't everything technically a Highland? Speyside technically lives within a Highland, and
yeah, but
there's a lot of confusion.
The SWA acknowledges and recognizes Speyside as its own region.
But there's a lot of confusion on bottles, though, if you're not careful, which is kind of confusing to the mass media. Is that sometimes it's a Speyside, but I think it even says Highland on there.
Highland single malt Scotch whiskey.
Right.
And yeah.
But it's not.
But they can say that because it's a
subsidiary
surrounded
of Highland.
by Highland.
So that's not the point.
Ooh.
That's not the point. The point is from a region perspective. I think these are two decent Speyside representatives.
I think they were good to go side by side too, as well, because of the characteristics that they bring. Mm-hmm. Hang on, let me taste this.
But I like this Macallan. Actually, it's a. Ooh.
I hate to say it. Well, this is a higher ABV. I think drinking this one first really left the Tamdu something to be desired. It just didn't bring it after that. I think this one's a lot hotter, but it also brings a lot more to it.
There's white chocolate, and I actually do get the sulfur now you're mentioning right there at the end now. I didn't get it before, but now I am.
So.
Almost a little bit of funkiness.
Told you so. Okay, so let's move on to next region, Highland. Right?
Highlands.
Okay, so we're going to get into the bigger.
Go figure.
Highland is the largest geographical area
Massive.
as far as regions, which poses a very interesting conversation about profiles. Mm-hmm. Because you've got Highland distilleries that are real central inland that have really much less, if no, influence from the coast. Mm-hmm. And you've got Highlands that are literally, they're Dunwich houses 2 feet from the water.
Yep, that's very true.
So they're going to be completely different, and you've got that in these two.
Good examples of that, one dead middle, and then one way up there, up in Orkney, right off the coast. Now, something interesting, too, to think about this when we're tasting this, is that, so when we do blind challenges, like Roy's challenge, the Alcavite challenge, for example, is, when we try to go through the drams and think about them, and Highland is a good example of that, is we go in there thinking, okay, what am I getting out of this? Am I getting, and to you, when I say it to you, like, when I say, what's a Highland to you? You're going to tell me what are you going to smell? Floral,
yeah,
heathery,
maybe grassy
some
to
fruit,
some
maybe,
degree.
but grassy, right? Typically.
Definitely floral. That's the dead giveaway. When I smell that in the nose, I'm already zeroing in on that region. I really am.
Right.
In my head.
So those are typically the go-tos. Now, again, that doesn't. It's a whole. It's definitely more of a mashup now with regions a little bit more, but typically that's what you're going to get in the Highland is. I should say used to be
right,
more grassy, more kind of heather and floral,
and not to use malty. I kind of
Somewhere.
expect that. To be honest with you guys, if I were to say that that these two regions really do kind of more or less represent what Scotch is. If you say something to a non-Scotch drinker, what do they expect it to taste like? It's probably going to be these two regions. Or they're completely off the map and they think all Scotch tastes like this.
So let's ask another dummy,
Which is very true.
who just arrived and say,
Step in the middle.
We're doing regions. So
I know. I was excited. I was sad I was gonna have to be a little late.
Perfect. You missed one.
When
You're
you
good.
look when you did your blind,
Here,
you
here
actually
they
did
are.
a blind, which hasn't been
You know what they
released
are.
yet. So actually, guess one. This is a space side. Guess which one's which out of
Yeah,
these
they
two.
were
Out of
lined
those
up.
two?
Yeah.
It should be pretty obvious.
They were lined up.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious.
Pretty obvious, right? But when you think of space side, what do you think of from a smell and taste?
Normally, for Speyside, I think the Highland region in general, I think like fruity and floral. Speyside, generally, I think more sherry influenced scotches. A little more towards the fruit than the floral, a little heavier style of scotch. I mean, and it's kind of a, it's not true for every single one of them, I don't think, but it's a generalization.
Exactly. That's exactly what we said. So we just moved from that, and we're getting ready to go through. We're talking about Highlands right now,
Right.
on these two representative Highlands.
So Highland, like I said, largest geographical region as far as Scotch is concerned. That floral, heathery, fruity, nutty, malty. That's the profiles that you're supposed to get out of it. But like I said, the interesting thing is Old Pulteney is right on the northern coast, very heavily influenced by sea salt, by the environment that is in, where Tamdu is way in the heart of inland. What did I say?
Tamdu,
yeah, Tamdu. Tamanton, which I've been to. You think I know that, is very central, has much less influence from the sea, if you will. So
To me,
But it's
profiles.
interesting though, because technically it's still Highland, but there's still semi-influences based on where they're located.
Right. So that region probably has the biggest range.
well, yeah, and I think these two are indicative of that because
Exactly.
to me, Old Pulteney has that old school like oily,
Sure.
like heavier style, and it's a little bit, it's got that briny
We don't know
quality
what's in
to it. Versus Tomatin to me is a lighter,
Traditional Highland.
yeah.
So
So this is one of those
this is
two.
one of those two. I don't know which one.
So there's no right or wrong answer, but just something to go through and kind of talk about our points with regions. We talked about this because we had some conversations this past weekend with some other people, and they're like, why is Scotch so cool? What's the difference? What makes Scotch Scotch? And we're like, well, regionally, right? That kind of just to get you up to speed. So we thought it'd be kind of cool to talk through all the topics of region and why they taste the way they do. So what do you get on the nose and palate?
yeah,
So-
talk to me about it.
Nose to me, I still get that floral quality. It's got some. It had some. Now that I've taken a sip, I don't get it as much because when
changed.
it's on the palate, it's a bigger, bolder palate. I'm thinking it's.
Let me have a
Pulteney.
sniff of it.
But it had some nice like dried flowers and light honey notes to it on the nose initially, but it's got a little bit of a bigger, bolder palate, and I get like some saltwater taffy and some nice caramel notes on there. But I still get it's got like a Fig Newton kind of finish. Mm-hmm. It's got that bready, fruity
On the nose it does too.
kind of thing going
Boy,
on.
it is.
I mean, it's nice.
Boy, there's a sweet note at the end of that profile. Long finish.
Yeah.
But it's like a fruity
See,
sweet,
18.
almost like a fruity candy sweet finish
I
on it.
don't know.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
It is good. I don't know which one it is. I don't think it's OP12. I haven't had OP12 in so long. Is that which OP this is?
17.
Oh, it's 17. Man, that's even the more curveball. Because this does not taste like OP12. Okay, that helps that.
So
That's not a bad
again,
guess.
to reflect on the region here. So this is smack dab right in the middle of the Highland, and there's no water around it other than the streams, etc. This is up there, all the way up north in the Highland by the water. So it's getting constantly when it's in the Dunnet, just constantly getting ocean air hitting it, right? So colder, I would think. Not a whole lot of degrees, but definitely colder.
Both 46%.
So there's a difference here between the two. Obviously, you're not tasting the difference, but
So you poured them. You know what's in that glass. Pour the other
What,
one.
you want to take a guess first or no?
I think it's.
Stick something for it.
I think it's Old Pulteney.
All right, he said Old Pulteney. I'll go Tomatin. Which one was it?
It was tomato.
Really?
God, the Tomatin that's a way hotter dram than I remember it being.
This is going to be more malty than...
It should be.
It was hot. I would have guessed it was upper 40s.
Taste that one and smell it.
Boy, that one smells floral. This Old Pulteney smells so floral. To me. Do you get a malt note on it? I don't get a briny
not
note.
really.
Not on the nose you won't, but you will on the palate.
I don't get it on the. I don't get a briny note either.
That's super light.
I know.
Like super light.
Compared to that Tomatin, I wouldn't have expected that.
Tomatin has a lot more flavor. The 12 Tomatin's good, but doesn't have nearly as much flavor as that. That 18 is a really good solid dram.
Oh.
Now you're getting the malty that you know from Pulteney.
No, to me, this 17, the thing that kind of turns me off on this particular bottle is that it's got like a briny, almost over-salted note to it, to me.
Yeah, but that's Old Pulteney. It's Old
But,
Pulteney.
but this is like to the point that I'm like, I think I'm good.
It was in the part of the dunnage that was closer to the water.
No, I totally get you.
You know what I mean?
It is definitely over top salt.
But the Tomatin,
Salty.
I don't remember it being as like
Fruity.
bold. Yeah, like I mean, it's got a big, heavy profile. I
Right.
don't remember that. I remember enjoying that bottle, but I don't remember it being quite that big.
Right.
So the difference between the Highlands and the Space Sides, like again, we mentioned mostly
it's
sherry,
perfect.
But they do marry. They do marry. Again, depends on
I
where
think
they're
you're
at.
going to get some fruity, floral notes on Space Sides.
The space side's so much sweeter. Just smelling them, just on the nose.
There's no rule of thumb here to say, well, if you want a sweet, sherry, go Space Side. That's not necessarily the case. But this is kind of a normality here we're talking about.
Right, and as I mentioned earlier, yes, it can be argued that all of this falls apart when you start getting into the fact that some distillers are starting to get creative. They're starting to bring out creative ideas, and they're peating things or using different styles and barleys and different styles, whatever. That happens, but for the most part, there's still a uniqueness to the regions. I think. And I definitely, when I'm purchasing whiskey, I look at that. I mean, when I read a label, I expect something out of this. Unless it's blatantly said that it's not, because you will get some of those, You get an Isla that's like, this is an unpeated Isla. And, well, there's the interest. That's why I want it.
A couple of comments here. Chad Anderson just said that, it was because of that salty briny note he was able to pick up that OP. You're absolutely... OP is good for that. Talisker is good for that. Both are right there on the ocean side.
Yep.
They're going to give you more of that briny taste than you're used to. There was a couple other comments here I saw earlier.
Look at
Tomatin
Gregor.
18 is a good bottle from Trooper Henry. What?
Gregor says, you can tell the regions were created by us lowlanders. Anything above Glasgow, Edinburgh is a Highland.
Oh, you mean all those guys? You can have them.
Oh, God.
I did? I don't know what that is. Okay.
Oh, man.
All right. So let's talk about one we don't have here, because we actually don't have, unless you have one on your bar. I don't think you have. I don't think we have a lowland anywhere. You have one, but it's not open, and we're not going to.
I'm not opening it. So you might have an Auchentoshan, but
I don't.
I think you actually poured it out.
I think you poured it out.
I did
That's the headache
not
bottle.
enjoy that one. It was just not. It wasn't a good bottle.
It wasn't.
It was their like entry level.
It was their
whatever.
Auchentoshan triple wood or
Yeah.
something. It just did not
So
muster.
lowlands is where it is. It's lower part of Scotland, right? It's going to give you, typically you're going to get more of a sweet, grassy, floral, more delicate, I would say.
Definitely.
Typically.
Yep.
I would say so. And because I'm like Auchentoshan on this website, it's triple distilled, and because of that, it's almost more like an Irish, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Exactly
definitely
right.
a lighter whiskey.
Now I have had Rosebank
and
Yeah.
a couple of times. Oh, it's delicious.
It's very
a good.
It's delicious.
You mean that's a good
But
little?
it's a subtle delicious.
Yes, and it is. I mean, it's not quite as subtle as like a grain, but they are
Yes.
very light scotches. At least the Rosebanks are. Now the Auchentoshan that I had the 12, I
Which,
believe.
according to this website, scored pretty good.
Not in my bar, it didn't.
No. The Akatosh, I have not had one yet that I really like.
It was not a great one. We've had some Glenkinchies, and the ones that I've had have been fairly decent.
I almost ran out in search of one for the show tonight, but I wasn't sure I would be able to find one, and I didn't want to waste my time.
The Bladnock is
Bladnock is, yes.
But what's the deal with Bladnock? That was a sherry though, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they've got a handful of bottles out there, but it's just hard to come by because number one, their distribution isn't in all states. The Adela, the one bottle of 15 Adela that I have is discontinued. We did see one in specs in Austin.
We did.
So they are still out there, and it's lovely. I love it. The Scotch for Dummies have already killed one bottle, and that's why the other one's staying in the dungeon for now.
Well, to me, I think that if they're done well, it's almost comparable to an Irish. Right?
Sure.
Like they're light. I kind of compare those two styles of whiskey.
Right. Which to me, you said the R word earlier, Rosebank. Not absolutely. They're great whiskeys. Of course, they're older than hell now, and it's coming back. But here's the thing. I would say to someone who doesn't know much about Scotch or much about whiskey, who can't appreciate it, it might be wasted on them because they might drink it and not get it. It's almost those lighter style whiskeys. You really have to have an attuned palate and a tuned nose to really give it the attention it needs to really appreciate it and find that subtleness and go, holy shit, this is really good.
It's like those old grain whiskeys, right?
Very true.
Yeah.
And I'm the first one to admit that I don't know that my palate is perceptive enough to pick up the notes that you get on those grain whiskeys.
So
right.
subtle.
But talk to someone like John Glazier from Campbelltown, and he's pulling these grain notes out, and you're like, really?
Yeah.
You think this is good? And his eyes are sparkling because he's already got a mix for that.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
It's crazy to think that.
Right.
Somebody bring me Klein Leash. Bring it.
All right, so Lowlands we can't technically do a blind tasting, but that's kind of the gist of there. There's not
a whole lot
a
out
whole lot
there.
going on.
There's only 4 or 5 distillers in the Lowlands right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not that many. As far as whiskey,
operational.
there may be 1 or 2 more grain ones that I'm not familiar with because we really haven't dove into the grain side of this yet.
Yeah,
Believe
right.
that.
Yep.
Just double checking a couple of quick comments. Yep.
Bourbon Battalion's on, man. I was gonna wear your T-shirt tonight.
Who? Go back up. Somebody said that they
I
picked
had
out
my
Steve
hand.
A. Akatosh has a note on the nose that I recognize in a heartbeat. Got poured some at a blind, took 1 sniff, and pegged it. For the record, not a fan. Feel ya.
Yeah, I 100%, brother.
Somebody's a fan. We'll not beat him up.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on here to you want to do this one next, or you want to do the coastal? Maybe we should
Let's talk about Campbelltown. Let's go there because it's different. So Campbelltown used to be the world capital of whiskey.
a wee bit.
At one point in time, it had over 30 distilleries in that little penis-shaped peninsula
Not
called
anymore.
Campbelltown. Now there's how many distilleries? Like I said, you've got Hazelburn, Long Row, and Springbank are really technically all the same distillery. There's 3 brands coming out of them. And then you've got Scotia and Glengyle, which makes Kilkerran.
That's
That's
it.
it.
3.
That's what you get.
Yep.
Not a lot.
You get
But
a
some
few
real-
labels out of the
But
3.
they're producing some massively great stuff.
And unique stuff as
Really
far
cool
as
uniqueness.
region. This is a region that says this is me.
So if you're new to Scotch and you're getting into Scotch, sherry, floral, heathery, and then funky.
Funktown.
Funktown. We'll talk about Isla and Islands in a minute, but not all Campbelltowns, but for the most part, I don't know why, but it's the way they still, right?
It's their style, right?
2.5 times stills. I know 1 or 2 of them.
And they have
are that
those. They have those. What's Dr. Scotch call them? Those little plates that come down, and I don't even know. But
He's not here.
I wish he was here. But they distill differently too, which gives them a unique flavor.
Very different and very recognizable. Very unique.
Well, it's also where they make their cuts, right? So they're
Good
pulling in
point.
different flavor profile than they're not trying to get the cleanest cut. They're actually trying for
That
some of those
profile.
weird flavors that come in if you make the cuts wider.
So you're going to get in the Campbelltown. You're going to get funkiness, but sometimes smoky, sometimes maybe even peaty,
Sure.
salty, sometimes even fruity.
It's a peninsula.
You're going to get some saltiness from some of that. But there's really kind of just a uniqueness about Campbelltown.
It's not noted in this flavor profile.
I don't know if it's fair to say that everyone. I think it's maybe a either you like it or you don't type situation.
I don't think it's quite as
You poured this, right?
off-putting, I guess, as an Isla.
An
might
Island's a
be.
different conversation.
But I think that it's definitely an acquired taste. To me, Campbelltown makes boutique whiskey, right? Like, I mean, all the distilleries that are there, when I look at the bottles that they're making, I'm like, they're lower production and better quality a lot of times. You get more bang for your buck in a bottle. I generally don't feel bad pulling the trigger on any of those.
No.
So it's got that funk. I'm not tasted it yet. It's got that funk. And I don't want this to sound off-putting or turn anybody off. I hope y'all appreciate it. But honestly, the Campbelltown funk reminds me of my great-grandmother's porcelain kitchen sink. When I was
What?
standing over it, just
Oh,
I mean,
from the-
like an old cast iron tub, but it was a sink. And I mean, when I was 8 years old, she was 96, right? And I remember just standing over. That's the smell I get out
From
of
the
it.
garbage disposal?
Garbage disposal. There was no garbage disposal. This old Polish woman had her garbage disposal. She used to eat lardon bread for a snack. I mean, you kidding me? But there's just something that brings me back to her house when I smell that, and it's unique. There it is. It's like, this is a Campbelltown. I don't know what it is yet. I'll get into that in a second, but I know it was born on that Penis Peninsula.
So you guys are probably going to be easy to figure this one out. But two great representatives here of a Campbelltown. Funkiness in both, but there's some characteristics differences here that are going to be tells. And so you guys should be able to pull them out.
But my thought on most Campbelltowns, I think of like a lightly peated, lightly smoky, kind of funky,
Yeah.
like
Toffee.
Yeah, even if they're not technically officially peated, they have some kind of, I don't know, a vaporish feel to them on the palate.
I generally find them a little oily on the palate. They've got a good like mouth coating feel to them.
Yep.
Some of them I get a little bit of salt, almost like the old Pulteney, like a
Expected.
briny note to it.
Sometimes, yes.
But I also get a lot of like big fruit flavors, and especially with these two representatives here.
What are the ABVs on these?
56.9 and 56.1.
So they're very close.
Right. Shit.
So I mean, I can generally.
They're and
You're splitting hairs on that one.
You
right?
really are, dude.
it can stand some water.
But-
So what do you guys want to? Oh, we got another super chat here. Who's that from?
DBC.
DBC. Thank you so much.
Molly, thanks.
So there's a glass.
Number of
pour.
days until the shindig in Indy. That's right.
We're going to talk about that before we get off. Don't
We
worry.
will, we
Thank
will.
you, D.
Thank you very much.
I don't have anything in my glass. You know what? I'll do some McKellen to you.
I'll drink some of this.
So what do you guys think?
I think it's, well, obviously the 59 point whatever it is, you said it was, is bold. It's strong. I hate to say it, but right off the bat, my nose went to Springbank. Not saying it's right or wrong, but
This is a different one too. Don't forget.
right,
This is the,
yeah, which is I think is a better representation. I think the other Kilcairn last year's
I
would have
agree.
stood out.
It would have stood out a
more.
little more than this one.
It was too
It's
heavy
more,
sherry.
It was more charry.
And more sherry influence, and which we tried not to get a bottle that was going to be overpowered by any maturation, because that's not a true representation of the region. But
I think I'm gonna have to try the other one.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, whatever. Which one it is? Right? Oh, this one. Oh, which one is it? Oh.
Drew's not to be fooled.
See what I did there?
I tell you what, whichever one it is, it's flippin' ass delicious. I'm sticking
really
with
good.
Springbank.
I was gonna say Kilcairn. I'm gonna stick
Well,
with
there
Kilcairn.
you go.
Hairs?
Yep.
Split hairs.
All right. We don't have any more glasses probably.
You know, I
but,
just rinsed one out. I just rinsed that one out for you.
All right. So
I was right.
Oh, look at Mark killing it.
You know why? I got an open bottle of that bad boy at home.
this guy here though this is my wheelhouse right now.
That-
I remember this
I can't-
being.
So I owe what I know about this
yeah.
bottle to Tom
Yeah.
R. I know
Right?
you're watching,
Yeah.
Tom. He bought
This has
me my
smokiness
first
to it.
bottle
It
of
does.
Springbank 12, and I love that man for it.
So
I'm
so
hooked.
this is my first taste, smell and taste. The Springbank
Different?
has definitely a smokiness to it and some funk
Like-
on the nose.
Holy shit.
That's
So-
a great bottle.
So
dude.
like, here's what I equate this to. Like you're having a really good meal, right? And you taste something for the first time and you're like, that is delicious. There's no way that you're going to top that. And then they bring out something that's like twice as good as the thing
That's
that you
delicious.
just said was delicious.
That's good.
It's really good, but
That's better.
that's the
It's
thing.
crazy. What's the difference in ABV?
Wow.
Like point
Not much.
two or some shit?
It's like less than, yeah. This one's 0.1, this one's 0.9.
And the Springbank comes off hotter. On
Yep.
the nose,
It
the Springbank
does.
punches you in the nose.
Yep.
The
and,
one thing
and
I will
the palate.
say is with Campbelltown.
Look at
see,
how
the
oily
funkiness,
that is.
I know.
That
It's just
funkiness
like
you're going to
gripping
get
the glass
is
like
going
a
to
mountain
linger on the finish for quite some time. Like I'm still,
Oh, yeah.
it's still kind of.
And it's the oiliest
Chewing on it.
stuff. I mean, literally, it looks. I mean, it's sticking to the glass like motor oil.
Yeah. And it's delicious. I forgot how good this Springbank was. I'm going to have to get some of that.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, the nose is different.
The Kilkerran actually on the palate has more of that Campbelltown funk than the Springbank does. Really brings it.
Which,
Really good.
I think I need a real pour.
you know what's funny? Because I haven't had this one in a while, and it's delicious. That Springbank is really good.
It's good.
If you would have poured both of those, and
You
we
would've
would have
picked
put
it
them
up.
head to head, it would have been
You-
way too easy.
Exactly.
But without the, because the Springbank is tasty and it checks all the boxes, right?
I will say, this is delicious. I like this so much. My favorite. But I will say this reminds me more of a traditional spring of a Campbelltown.
Yeah.
This is a little bit more unique, and it gets into more of that sulfuric, that thing that I love so much in like the 19th and 20s. This
Yep.
this is more of the funkiness than this is,
Yep.
I think.
And this has a briny note to it that I don't think the Kilkerran has.
I think the Springbank has more of a mentholyptus feel on the palate than the Kilkerran.
Yeah.
Gregor, this is the bottle you need to get to replace your 20s right now. That guy.
You got to find them, brother. They're going to be hard to find, to be honest with you.
You'll have to come to Indiana and go into our locker to get one.
Come on, Whiskey Crossing, just make it here. We'll talk about it at the end of the show. We got 2 more regions to get through, so let's
We
do
do. Let's
that.
go.
What's next?
All right, so let's do the Island Coastal next.
Sure.
So this is the one that is
Unofficial.
unofficial, right?
Technically, according to the SWA, it's
It's
Highland.
Highlands. Yeah.
Yep, it is Highlands.
But I think that they're unique enough that you should talk about them as almost a separate category.
And honestly, you talk to some people, and they break the islands up even into smaller. They will say Orkney deserves to be by themselves.
It's true.
Or, I
Oh,
mean,
they're way up there. Man.
yeah, I mean, it's a completely different climate.
Northernmost,
but
right?
I won't go to that far. We'll stick to just the islands, which there are a lot. We've got,
Yeah.
Skye, Mull, Orkney. I mean, we can...
Jura.
Yeah, exactly. And so... what do they all bring? That might bring a little bit of a variety in the characteristic, but...
They're kind of a blur, though, between a lot of these, though, right? Because you're going to get that salty, briny, smoky, heathery stuff that you get in kind of a lot of these.
Well, and that's maybe not so much the space side, but
Yeah.
maybe potentially. And some of those islands are also peating their stuff.
That's right.
So you get some...
To me, it just depends on like kind of what style they want to hit, right? Because you get some of them that are like, well, we're Highland and we're going to make Highland style whiskey. But then you get others that are trying to do something unique. So you get like Highland Park, that's semi-peated but not extra peated, but
Right.
their peat
Did you do
is
this one?
heathery
I did
and
that
it's
one.
lighter. And then you get an island like Jura that's a fairly decent sized island, right?
Yeah.
So you could put your stills and your dunnage houses someplace that maybe you aren't getting that coastal influence quite as much as a smaller island.
But
right,
let's talk about geography of where it is. Most of the islands that we're talking about are on the west coast of Scotland, which are getting hit by Gulf Coast or Gulf stream water, right? So more and more water is coming up, and it's different
Right, versus
than,
the opposite side. Yes.
than what Old Pulteney's getting from the north. Old Pulteney's
correct.
getting pummeled by northern
Cold ass
shit.
water.
Whereas Jura, Skye, Mull, all those are coming
Warmer
across.
temperature.
It's different water.
yep.
Does that make a difference?
So on the
don't
nose
know.
of this bottle, you poured one either the Highland or the
Highland
Jura.
Park 15, and this is an old bottling of Highland Park 15, 43% ABV. And Jura, I don't even remember which Jura this is, 7 wood, and it's 42%. So ABV is 1% off. They look similar in color.
bubble gum in the nose.
This is super fruity.
At first, the very first initial
Fruity.
Get the car.
palate was the same as the bubble gum, and then it completely went away. Now I'm getting like this bitterness, some smoky cherry,
Boy, that bubble gum's there. No shit.
dry finish. It's lasting actually. That's not so much dry, but it's kind of like a bitterness, I guess, more than a dry. It's gone. That's it. It's interesting. A little salty.
You didn't get no malt?
I didn't get any malt.
Well, I got a little bit of maltiness in there.
It's got an astringent quality to it that kind of
wee
dries
bit
your
of
mouth out, but
does.
it's weird because it's got that like it's super fruity up front. The initial like half a second taste and on the nose, you're right. It's like bubble gum and sweet fruits, and then it goes into a hardcore like range of woods through like oak and cedar. And it just starts to, as it sits in your mouth, it just kind of dries things out. And there's a little bit of a brine note to it.
Very woody in the back.
And then it just kind of fades away.
Yeah, I honestly have no idea. I don't. It's been so long since I've had Jura. I don't remember. I feel like it was more rich than this, but I'm also not a big Highland Park guy, so I don't know. I feel like Highland Park is more briny.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, so I'm gonna go Highland Park on this one.
Interesting. I don't remember Juras either as far as tasting them because it's been a while. I know one thing. I do want to go to that island just to say that I made it there
Lee's been
because
there.
I know Lee's been there, but don't they have like a higher concentration
More
of
deer
than people? I mean,
Like-
shit.
Like
Way higher.
one grocery store, one bar, one hotel.
I just want to
that's
go
it.
there to say I made it there, right? But Highland Park, I am a fan of Highland Park. I'm not a fan of what they've done with their marketing in the last 2 years, but I'm a fan of their whiskey. But this particular one, I don't even remember. I think I poured the Highland Park. Yeah, I did.
You did.
So
Wow.
I just cleaned this bottle. I just cleaned this glass out. Here's the Jura.
I have a feeling the Jura is going to be richer, more fruity.
So the Jura 7 wood, influenced by 7 select French and American oak barrels for a rare balance of depth with a hint of smoke. Which
It
is
almost
a perfect,
smells,
it should have been a perfect marry against the two because Highland Park does have, they do put like 4 to 7 ppm of phenols for peat as far as that's concerned. They do peat their stuff a wee bit.
Huh.
Hope Gregor appreciates my Scottish there.
Yeah, Scotch down under says HP 15 was one of the good ones.
Right, and it's gone. They don't even make HP 15 anymore.
Wow,
so.
that's
It's
a
got
completely different nose.
Really?
It's got a weird, not necessarily weird, but it's like fresh wood.
Yes, like watered wood, like
Yeah.
it's wet wood.
Man, that Highland Park is so much fruitier than I remember.
It's got a
It
nice
really
malt
is.
note to it. But the wood is, on the palate and the nose, is very,
Orange bitters too on the nose.
it's a good pull.
So they are
behind that.
making new Highland Park 15 according to Highland Park to Whiskey Crossing. I didn't know they were making. Yeah, I thought Highland Park 15 was discontinued.
Isn't it some sort of Viking
Yeah,
Well,
maybe
that's
tattoo thing?
that's so much more tamer than the Highland Park.
Yeah. The
Like-
Highland Park's actually,
Well,
that's a nice glass.
It is nice. It's got a little bit more power to it than the Jura. The Jura is more subtle, almost watered down.
the Jura tastes young.
It does.
Like it needed to sit in some barrel and get some age.
Edgier.
It's definitely edgier.
Yeah.
The Highland Park is a good dram, but again, going back to the regions, it's going to it feels coastal to me. Is that safe to say?
It is.
Coastal?
Yeah.
Problem with that is there's so many distilleries in the Highland Park region that are coastal. Maybe that's why they don't want to give the islands its own region. I'm not sure, but it can definitely be lost in the sauce on islands with Highlands. You see what I'm saying? You can, but that's not true. All you got Skye, you got Talisker, you've got some islands that are doing completely different stuff. Talisker is more apt to get confused with Isla than it is Highlands, I would think. But
Yeah.
we wanted to touch base on the islands because we had some islands, even though it's unofficial. But it's talked about and considered a region so much that we needed to do it. So we had
Yeah.
it. Here it is. Last one is, we saved it for last because it's
Well,
gonna,
it's gonna tame
it's gonna
everybody.
We're not
tame
gonna taste
all
anything
of
else.
right. It is what it is. But ironically enough, I meet so many people that literally think that this is all that Scotch is.
We heard at least 3 conversations this past weekend saying the same thing. I don't like
Yeah.
Scotch because
Well,
it's smoky.
Everything tastes like I'm eating a charred
cigarette.
fire, right, or an ashtray, and I'm like, you think that's what Scotch is?
Well,
Really?
versus the dude that came into my bar 2 weeks ago that ordered a Scotch and got Ardbeg and told the
Told you to
server to
pour
pour
it
it out because it was bad.
Right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, this past weekend at the Bachelor's Ball in the hotel of the La Quinta, and I wanted to give a shout out to Women in Whiskeys. Michelle, she's one of the hosts of that show. New show starting. They do Wednesday nights at 11 p.m. Interesting for all you ladies out there that like to watch sort of your killer or detective whodunit type things, which I know all women do.
They all love it.
They on their last Wednesday of every month.
plotting
That's the
our
whole
deaths.
Somebody's got to do it.
topic of their show. But her husband is a big whiskey fan, and he spans bourbon, Scotch, and all of them. She hasn't found a Scotch that she likes, and it's that very reason she can't find it. So I'm like, time out. I'm finding you a Scotch that you're gonna drink. Well, there's like 125 bottles, and we're gonna find. So I grabbed her, and we went over and we started talking. And you know, I gave her 2 Scotches that hooked her. First one was Dalmore Cigar Malt, but she literally said, "Oh, this is really good. I can drink this." I'm like, "Oh, it's a Scotch. Put that down. Try this one." Next one I poured her was Signet. Coffee,
Oh,
you know.
jeez.
Yeah. And she's like,
This is
God, I
Scotch?
really like that one, but I really like this one too. I'm like, well, take them both back to your husband. I just spent him $300, $400. But God love him because he's a whiskey lover. But anyway, check out their channel. The point that I was making with that is that so many people literally taste this as their first Scotch and think that's what all this is, and they never get to experience this.
Or it's not that, it's Johnny Black.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Well, that's sure, of course.
right? Because it's an accessible bottle.
30
Everybody's
bucks.
got one.
Cheap.
It's on the bar. Like, give me a Scotch, and they pour that, and they think
This is
that's
Scotch.
it.
I don't
right?
ever want Scotch again.
Right.
Okay.
And there's so much more. That's the whole point of regions and the difference between Scotch and bourbons. Not to say bourbons don't have variety, definitely, but
Right.
it's created by creativity.
So what do you have there?
I have Ardbeg Black, which is
I'm not going to say it that way.
46%, and Lagavulin 16, my go-to, which is 43%. So I have no idea. You poured this. I don't
did.
know which one's which.
But from an Isla perspective, these are 2 heavy hitters.
Absolutely 2 heavy hitters. Neither one of these distilleries produce anything but peated. You're never going to see something come out of these distilleries that's non-peated.
Right.
That's all there is
And
to it.
Who else do you have? You got Bruichladdich,
Kilchoman, Colila, Laphroaig.
Laphroaig, and Laphroaig is a whole nother beast because
Punch in the nose.
It's like when I think of Laphroaig, obviously all of these island distilleries are going to give you a peated smoked flavor, but Laphroaig tends to go this medicinal side of the house that the others don't. Like I can almost tell you for the most part, you give me a lineup of Islas, I'm going to pick the Laphroaig out of the Islas. Because it's going to give like a Band-Aid iodine smell to it.
I think
Yeah.
Laphroaig, Ardbeg, and Lagavulin all have a unique peat.
They have expanded out to different things, but for the most part,
Right.
I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like for the most part, I'm pretty good at figuring out that's a Lagavulin, that's an Ardbeg.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a good test for you
will
too,
be.
to
It will
see
be.
which one's which.
Bunnahabhain's another one that we forgot. I don't want to skip
yeah.
any of
Yeah.
the big hitters when it comes, and I'm sure we did miss one.
Well, and then they've got the new distilleries.
Yeah, there's exactly.
There's
So
2 new ones on
But,
the island.
And
but
we
for the
haven't-
most part, Isla is going to give you that smoky peated stuff. That we're
it's
talking
what it's
about.
known for.
It's like the biggest bold misdirection of
So
Scotch.
Bruichladdich the only one that does produce a non-peated
non-peated,
version, right?
right.
So there's your curveball.
Classic
But
Lottie.
for the most part, when you say the word Isla, you're going to get one of these 2. So I don't know what's in this. Let's
green.
see. It's green.
Classic Lottie, I just mentioned that. Yep, the Classic Lottie is a great newbie intro. You're right, IC86.
So
into
Scotch
Isla.
Down Under saying there's some a Colila 18 unpeated. So it's not uncommon for them
It's true.
to throw a curveball
Yeah.
out there. But look, at the end of the day, Isla's known for what?
Smoky Pete.
Peat.
Yeah.
That's all it is to it.
Yeah. So it's interesting because
That's-
all of
that is.
these regions now have realized that there is
There's no
value
way
in
that's not
trying different things. So they're all doing unpeated,
This one
peated,
was in red wine.
fruity,
glass, right?
Speyside, different things. So
Pretty
it's
sure.
interesting. Oh, you guys already figured it out.
There's no way that's Lagavulin 16. There's no way that's Lagavulin 16.
It's got a little bit of a red fruit note on there, I think.
The first smell I got of it, maybe it's just a dirty glass or something. First, it was not at all what I wanted to say. But I'm trying to. Sean asked what the finish was on this.
I think it's like red wine cask from New Zealand or
I mean, to be fair, this for
Australia.
us. I mean, we're dummies, but
Pinot Noir.
we've had enough Islas to know which is which, and they're already on it. I mean, that's not Lagavulin.
No, that's not Lagavulin.
But it's obviously Ardbeg. I mean,
Yeah.
it tastes like an Ardbeg to us.
yeah.
Why? And what makes it stand out?
So
Chocolatey.
on the nose, this is a unique, a weird.
This is a newer
maturation
bottle for them.
for Ardbeg. But a note that I commonly get on Ardbegs that I really it's like the tell at the poker table. I know it's an Ardbeg. I get a peanut note either on the nose, on the palate, and or both. And I didn't get it on the nose. My first nose, I was like, okay, I don't know what the F that is, but I know it's not Lagavulin, so it's got to be this Ardbeg. On the palate, I got it. There's a peanut note on my palate. I'm nailing that every time.
I usually equate it to like an ashiness about Ardbeg that I get
Yeah.
on the finish. But to me, it's one of those things. It's like, here it is, right? Like it's Ardbeg. It's big and bold,
punch.
and it's supposed to be.
That's what they're priding on.
Now, this one I kind of picked as an Ardbeg because I thought that the black was done in a red wine cask, and I got like a plum or
So you
cherry.
nailed that on the
You
nose.
pulled that out of the nose.
He
Yeah.
did. Because he asked me, he's like, "This is a red wine finish, right?" And I had to look. It's real small print.
We could have matched it better. I mean, that's just what we grabbed.
But I mean, I think you still get the Ardbeg flavor.
You do.
So it's not like it's something weird that you don't.
you do.
But there's no doubt that Isla has its own characteristic. Now, Bruichladdich does have one that tries to break that mold and get outside of it, and that's fair because there are Speysides that try to get into the Isla mold. We get it. But at the end of the day, when I say Isla, you say Pete.
Pete.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, it is what it is.
So when we look at this stuff, and we'll wrap it up here in a minute, but we got a couple things to talk about still. But when people ask you what's your favorite Scotch, and we always say, well, it depends, and this is exactly why it
Very
depends.
much so.
This
Yep.
is exactly why, because it's a mood thing, and I think most of you out there will agree. If once you get into Scotch enough, where you've had a varietal, you're gonna realize there's so much different flavors that it depends on your mood. And obviously, there's going to be better bottles based on different regions that you may acquire for your palate. But for the most part, it depends. Like there's times where I'm like, man, give me that log. I want that Lagavulin. I want that Isla. I'm
Different?
outside the campfire. Or there's times where I want a Speyside, a fruitiness, or maybe something subtle with a Highland. So the regions really do kind of play a big part into decision making when you grab a Scotch. Like when you're gaming or you're looking at your bar, 9 times out of 10 you're going to think region.
I do. And a lot of times I'll start even broader than that. Like, do I want a peated or a non-peated?
Right.
Do I want a sherry bomb or something light?
Right.
And then I can start narrowing down, okay, well, I want something light tonight. Okay, well, I'm looking for a Highland probably.
Yes.
But maybe an Island, maybe there's something that's a little bit lighter. Or maybe I want something that's kind of peated, kind of heavy, but maybe not all the way Isla, so maybe I'm looking for a Campbelltown. And it does help you kind of narrow down what you're looking for.
And question, so would it be fair to say that people that are getting into Scotch, and a question for you guys out there right now, would it be safe to say that you guys have every region covered? Like when you go to grab a bottle from your bar, do you look at it and go, which region do I want? Or do you kind of all in on a certain region? I'm curious to see what you're saying. Because I feel like for me, I'm more regionally heavy on certain areas. Like I don't have hardly any island stuff. I think you have a lot of Highland parks. I'm more of a funky Speyside guy. I have some Islas, but not as much as you or Andrew, for example.
I've pushed myself, as far as regions, I've pushed myself out. But I will take your question and expound on it and say, When you reach for that bottle, do you reach for it based on region, or do you reach for it based on what you know about the actual bottle / distillery? So when I'm got the headset on, I'm shooting people with you, Drew, on Xbox, and I'm like, oh, I gotta grab something. And what am I in the mood for? I don't look at my bottles here and go region based. I'm like, I'm in the mood for this.
But you have a palate in mind because of the
Oh,
region.
absolutely. I mean, it really does come down to, but I'm not saying, I think region comes into it when I'm buying more than anything. When I'm looking at a bottle that I'm unfamiliar with, and I'm like reading the notes, and I'm like, all right, wait a minute, who is this distillery? Where are they located? They're located here, and they're claiming these notes. What the hell's going on with that?
Yeah.
Let me go read some reviews.
Now, I have picked bottles up that I'm like, that doesn't seem right.
Right, of course. Yeah, when they stand way out, you're like, okay, that sounds interesting, but are you willing to pay the premium? Oh, I'm not paying twice as much because it's interesting. I might pay 75% of because it's interesting. You know,
Right.
who knows? But region comes into my purchasing, not so much as my drinking.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Yeah, because you have so many bottles, you know. All right, so we got a couple comments here. So Manuel, Yugadale's my favorite from Isla. Yep, agreed. Pierre says, I've yet to buy anything from Lowland. Yeah, join the club.
It's tough.
It's hard to
There's
find.
not many.
Well, there's not very many, and the ones that are not very prolific.
Talisker is a favorite from a lot of people. We hear you don't see a lot of people talking about it, but you see a lot of people
Review
online.
#1, Scotch for Dummies.
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean, what the heck?
Alejandro, I try to keep a representation of each region in my bar. Absolutely.
You met that guy.
Yeah.
great
He's
guy.
awesome.
Steve A. I reach based on what I feel that night. Okay.
Travis Fairclaw says, I go sherry usually. Really? I'm so
That seems
surprised.
unusual.
I couldn't believe that, Travis. I really
Yeah.
just can't believe you would reach for a sherry.
Prescription, we know. We mentioned it earlier. We don't have a Lowland. That's one thing we missed tonight. We didn't
I
have one.
don't have one on the bar. We didn't have one to put out.
We need to go buy some Rosebank, apparently.
Yeah, Chris agree. It's absolutely a mood thing. So many awesome choices with Scotch. I agree. And let's not be. Somebody else mentioned it earlier. It's hard to. It gets even worse with bourbon. So I mean, bourbon has a lot of things as well. But for the most part, we have been in the Scotch world for
Long time.
6 years, guys.
6 years.
More than
That's
that.
a great transition. I was going to talk about bourbon for a second, but this is the transition point that Drew just threw, and I'm going to hit it out of the park. Transition part. So here we go.
Transition Park.
Throw it
Hey,
over.
what's 6 years coming up? We've got, 3 or 4 weeks left. And we've been working on this. At the end of the day, we missed our 5-year because of COVID. We're coming back with a 6-year, and it's turning out to be epic. It's turning. It's
gonna be really good.
It's building. It's building. It's building. And I will not tell you that last weekend at the Whiskey Tribe event made me so much more excited about our event coming up. That was awesome. It's the people. It is getting together with the people. I got to cross and rub shoulders with so many subscribers / whiskey tubers. I had a blast just hanging out with all of you, and you know who you are.
100%.
Well, I mean, Alejandro, Gregor,
Zach.
all the two. Zach, thank you
Me.
for getting back to my room. I'm still alive because of you, brother. I love
story.
you. But honestly,
I take one
really-
weekend off, and you can't find your hotel room.
I was the last one standing there. I
I
represent.
know.
Represented.
That's why you got in trouble. I wasn't there to hang out with you.
I use Zach. But anyway, this is going to be an epic time. What we have is November 12th and 13th. We have a Scotch paired dinner at the Chop House on Friday the 12th.
It's gonna be amazing.
And then
30
on
35-year-old brewer.
34. I mean, only 35.
If you're splitting hairs.
Yeah. So it honestly is a great dinner lined up. We're doing our best to accommodate and be as gracious hosts as we can. At the end of the day, it also is a Scotch pairing dinner, so be on the lookout. It's going to be epic. You kind of want what's being served with the Scotch because of that reason. But at the end of the day, we understand. Anyway, that's good. That night, hotel. Everybody after it, we have bus service going from the hotel to the Chop House if you need that. If you're getting a room, we'll get you up to the Chop House. Have a great time. We'll get you back, and then we'll have a better time. And then Saturday, 12 o'clock,
day.
all day. We said 12 o'clock because it might be a late morning for everybody that had fun the night before. Late day, 12 o'clock, we have a catered lunch.
Yep.
which I'm looking forward to because I love that stuff from Backroads Barbecue. And then it is an all-day event. We have 3 whiskey workshops. We have Dan Kroll from Glenmoe presenting. We have Cameron from Ardbeg. Just turned on today. We just got him locked in today. I'm stoked about Cam coming in. Cam is charismatic. He is an awesome cat. You guys are going to love him. And he represents Ardbeg. What the hell?
Yeah, if you haven't met him, he is
Great guy.
You need to.
A ton of fun.
Yeah. And then finally we got Ben Dietrich from SMWS, who has a plethora of whiskey at his disposal to talk about. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to have some fun events going on that day at the hotel as far as live blinds, some throwback whiskeys from the 70s,
All day lives
80s.
from us.
It's going to be fun. There's whiskey tubers coming in.
Yep.
We've got other whiskey tubers coming in. I can't wait to throw Scott in front of the camera from the test dummies. Leanne, Scotch in the Bayou is going to be there. Leanne, you
Jason
don't need to
from
bring...
the Mash and Drum, I think, is coming. Hopefully a couple others.
Yes, I am hoping to see Keith from Malted Man Cave, Whiskey She Wines.
Hopefully.
I would love to see them. So we're working on all that too, but it's a great time. Go to scotchfordummies.com. There's an RSVP button.
Mm-hmm.
You got to click it so we know
Tickets
what
are there to
do.
buy for Friday night and
Yep.
Saturday, or either or. Transportation is taken care of back and forth from Friday night.
Yeah, that's an as needed.
As needed.
There's 2 tickets to be purchased. There's the Friday night dinner ticket, and then there's the Saturday ticket. Whether you can make both and or one or the other. If you need bus service from the hotel back and forth, that's going to be handled on the spot. You know, the bus will be there, and it's $10 a person, and that's round trip. So whatever, that's easy. Questions, comments, or concerns, scotchfordummies.com. Get it to our scotchfordummies@gmail.com. Yeah, get it to us. We need to get this locked down. We're stoked. It's going to be awesome.
It's starting to get pretty big quick. So if you haven't got your tickets yet, make sure you go there tonight, at least by the next couple of days, to get it locked in, because it's getting crowded.
It is, and it's going to be fun.
It'll be awesome.
I'm looking forward to it. So regions, guys, right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm sure there were comments that were set out there that we missed that corrected us on anything. And no one's to say anything is 100% right or wrong, but there is something.
I think it gives you a good starting point.
That's right.
A frame of reference, and that it's not going to be 100%. There's going to be variations on the curve, right?
Yep.
There you go.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. So far, I'm excited about this freaking shindig. It's going to be awesome. So excited.
Another shout out to everybody that we saw last weekend. Man, I love y'all.
God,
Zach,
so much fun.
Leanne. Leanne is now my official older sister, and I love her to death. Zach, I owe you one for getting me back to my room, brother. You're a trooper. Gregor, you're my brother from another Scottish mother, brother, man. Dude, we are going to hook up. Again, that guy, I can't wait till you
We got to tell you some stories. We haven't even debriefed this guy yet.
Nope.
So, looking forward to it. To all of you coming in November. If you're not and you're thinking about it, get your butt here. We're going to have fun.
Guys, we'll see you next week.
Cheers.
to that.
Cheers, guys.
3, 2, 1.